Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits Podcast. I'm Hillary Wilkinson. Whether you're starting your parenting journey with a newborn or looking to connect with your teen on technology, let's learn some new healthy screen habits together. As the founder of the top parenting site, Better Screen Time, my guest today is committed to helping parents worry less about technology and connect more with their kids. Better Screen Time is the place for parents who want technology to hold an intentional place in their household. The husband-wife team and power parents of 5, Tyler and Andrea Davis, bring compassion and credibility when teaching families positive strategies to manage screen time better in their own homes. Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits Podcast, Andrea Davis.
Thank you, Hillary. I'm so excited to be here. That was an awesome introduction.
Oh, thank you. Andrea, I feel like you and I have been friends for a long time, but this is the first chance we've actually talked face to face. I feel like this is my own example of a parasocial relationship. A few years ago, Andrea experienced this pretty major house fire that was started with a Roomba that had been placed on a counter and turned itself on and ignited the gas stove, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no. And honestly, all of us at Healthy Screen Habits were completely up in arms. All of this to say, I'm so glad you're here and I'm glad you're well. And I know your house has come through it and we have actively followed you.
Well, and that's what's amazing is these relationships that we do develop online. Like I felt your support and was supported by you guys, even though we'd never met in person. But I think because we have this common mission, we feel just kind of this unifying strength, or I don't know what it is, but we feel a little bit united in our cause.
I agree. It's kind of this digital wellness community.
Mm-hmm.
And going off of that, each of us in this kind of community have come here via a different path. And what was it that drove you to create Better Screen Time?
Yes. Well, this journey really started a long time ago when I became a parent. And we were chatting with a good friend. My husband was in grad school at Purdue at the time. And I was visiting with this friend, and she was a voracious reader, just loved to read, had read everything. And I asked her, what did your parents do to instill this love of reading? And she said, oh, we didn't have a TV growing up. And I was like, really? I was totally just fascinated and curious. And so I told Tyler, I said, my husband, Tyler, I said, what do you think if we just put the TV in the closet? We don't necessarily get rid of it, but we use it more like an appliance. We just pull it out when we need to. And he's an engineer, so he's ultra practical. And he was like, sure, he's not really into sports. And that sounded good to him. And so it's crazy, but our oldest is almost 17 now. So that experiment has lasted. She was probably 2 at the time, 15 years. And that's still what we've been doing. So that's really where it started, where I just kind of wanted to be intentional with how we use technology. And, but fast forward many years later, and you and I both know that the TV is the least of our concerns, right?
Right.
And as our oldest entered middle school, we made a big move from Illinois to Oregon. It was an unexpected move. It was kind of a challenging time for our family. We had a hard time finding a place to live. And I handed over a smartphone to our oldest. She was in middle school. And at the time, that's kind of what was available. I wanted her to be able to stay in touch with these friends that she left behind, which is hard at that age. And I also wanted to be able to get a hold of her in this place where I didn't know anyone. And I think as I've read and done research, I think post 9/11 and post Columbine, parents definitely feel more of a need to stay connected with their kids throughout the day, and especially when you're in a new place. But I will tell you, Hillary, it didn't take long for me to realize that I had made a mistake as a parent, that it was too much too soon. And at that time, Apple didn't even have the screen time, didn't even exist. And there were no smartphones without internet access like we have now. So it was so hard, but we went back to a brick phone. And as I was searching to find when is the right time to give your kid a phone, I just was finding a lot of fear-based information, and it seemed like parents like picked an age or they just said never. And neither of those really felt right to me. And I just thought, okay, I know that I need to mentor our child and not just monitor. So that
Mm,
was how Better Screen Time got started.
excellent. Yeah, but it came from a place of intention, which
Yes.
I think is very much the mission of your organization the mission stated is to help parents worry less and connect more with their kids. And
Yes.
I'm always intrigued with how other moms do this. Like, it
Hmm.
seems like with our busy schedules, we're pulled 1,000 different directions after school hits. And it's like, if I don't have dinner planned or if I don't have dinner pre cooked by about 2, it's like, good
Uh-huh.
luck, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, how do you connect with your family?
Yes. So I found that there's some tools that can help us, and I turn to the 3 R's is what I call them. So this is through rituals, rewards, and recharging. And that really is focusing on like screen-free connection, right? So rituals, I mean, I think they're the things that used to be very commonplace in society and in families, but between busy schedules and technology, you combine those two things together, those family rituals have really shifted. And
Hmm.
for some families have been completely lost. And so for us, that's like family dinner, sitting down and having family dinner together. But it's also spending time together doing special things outside of family dinner. So one-on-one dates with our kids, that's something that we really try to implement because with 5 kids, we find that our kids need some one-on-one time with just us
Sure.
once in a while. So that's another ritual that we try to instill. I also talk a lot about rewards. And when I mention that, people think, okay, what does that mean? Because I think sometimes parents like to use screen time as a reward. Like you get all your chores done and your homework's done, then you can have screen time. But I like to just instead build screen time inside the routine and make the reward actually time with you as a parent. So I say reward your kids with your time, not screen time. And again, I think that just looks like sitting down and playing a game for 10 minutes or doing a puzzle together, or we have a trampoline and our oldest kids still like to jump on the trampoline. So like, let's go jump on the tramp for 10 minutes or going on a walk, just very simple things. But I think those are the moments that we really connect with our kids and
Sure.
give them a chance to tell us about their day without badgering them necessarily with questions, because then I think things naturally come up. And so that's how we make those connections. And then recharging. And so we've sat down with our kids and had a conversation about, okay, what do we do when are stressed out or we feel like we need to unwind? How can we do that without a screen? And so we talk about recharging, alone, but also as a family. What are some screen-free things, activities that we love to do that can help us unwind without turning to a screen? And so I think just using those is kind of a foundation, then each family can find what works best for them.
I think you have boiled down just the most critical path of parenting into those 3 R's. You're teaching your child a variety of ways that they can self soothe when you have that recharging time rather than
Yeah.
just relying on digital distraction. If they're out in the world and they find themselves being overwhelmed, they have all of these tools, and there's tool belts that you have done together with them when you're recharging, whether it's reading or drawing or going for a walk, jumping on the trampoline, all of those things that you said. And I love the rituals. It also, I mean, it speaks to secure attachment with,
Hmm.
feeling safe, seen, and soothed, and you're continually checking in with your kids.
Yeah. Well, and I like what you said about teaching. I think that's a big piece of it is that you are teaching your kids through living it rather than through
Right.
a lecture. And
Which
that's so much more powerful because, again, we're not going to be there when they walk out the door to say, hey, you've spent 30 minutes or 2 hours on, the laptop. It's time to get off. If we're instead like trying to live that connection and that, teaching them how to recharge, then those are skills that they take with them.
Yes. And I think it works particularly well with our older kids because it seems like as when you go from the role of parent when our kids are younger is a very different role than we take when our children hit their teenage years. And you kind of
Yes.
go from very like a managerial state
Mm-hmm.
in when they're younger to it almost kind of flips to more coach and mentor with the
Yes.
teen. It becomes not so much of a let me walk in front and I'll show you the way to let me walk alongside you. And then ultimately what at least my goal is to I want to walk behind. I want to see what they
Yeah.
do in the world.
Yes.
So I think
Yeah.
your 3 R's are just creating that opportunity for that growth. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I attended a training last night. They were talking a lot about with working with teenagers, and they were talking about that importance that we are mentoring leaders. We're not leading them. And
Yes.
I think again, as our kids get older, that is so important to remember that we want to prepare them to step into our role and not by telling them what to do, but by mentoring them and really letting them lead. And sometimes that means crashing sometimes, which isn't fun, but
Absolutely. Absolutely. And knowing that those stumbles, those crashes aren't they're not going to be an end all. I mean, crashes are to be expected. We
yes.
anticipate those stumbles when they're toddlers.
Yes.
And so why don't we anticipate those stumbles when they're teenagers? For some reason, I struggle with the older stumbles than I ever did with the younger.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because it feels like the consequences are that much more, they're bigger. They
Yeah,
feel a lot
for
bigger.
sure. For sure. Right. Okay. Well, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to dive into how we can set our families up for success when integrating digital life with family time.
Hi, I'm Amy Adams from Healthy Screen Habits. I have the privilege of running book club, and we invite you to join us each Friday over on Instagram at Healthy Screen Habits, where we discuss books that will help us create healthy screen habits for a balanced life. We have a book that we do every couple months, and we hope you'll join us and enjoy and learn and grow with us.
My guest is Andrea Davis, a former secondary ed teacher turned screen time navigator. She's the founder of Better Screen Time, where she shares family tested ideas from the tech trenches as a mom of 5. So, Andrea, one of the things that you show often on like your posts, and whether it's blog posts or social media, are family meetings. And
Mm-hmm.
I admire you greatly for pulling them off. I crack up when I see the big flip chart come out because I completely recognize the teacher tools. I also recognize that my kids would 100% go on strike if I tried something like that. Like so
Yeah.
so I look at that and I go, that is so amazing and admirable. How do you pull that off? Like how do you get buy-in from your kids when you're having a family meeting?
Yes. Well, I believe it starts when our kids are young. And so if we can, if there's any parents with younger kids listening, like starting those family meetings when your kids are little and making them even like 5 minutes is great because then it doesn't seem strange when all of a sudden they're 12 and you have big issues and you pull out the flip chart. They're not going to panic. But I will say that, if you've never done that before, and that does seem like your kids are going to just lose it if you try to pull something like that off. I think that the conversation can be much more organic, as in you still kind of need to plan for it as a parent and with your spouse or partner if you have, someone that you're parenting with. But you don't have to necessarily pull out a flip chart for it to be effective. So, I tell families, obviously, like dinner time, just thinking of times when you're normally gathered is a great time to just bring up even a news article like the recent Facebook files, bringing up, hey, I saw this article that said Instagram is toxic for teen girls. And if you've got older kids, it's a great conversation to have. With younger kids, that might not be the thing that you want to bring up and talk about. It might be something more simple, but we started these conversations with our kids and then put them in a discussion guide called Creating a Tech Healthy Family. And there are 10 must-have conversations to help you worry less and connect more with your kids. And so in that, we are, of course, like saying, okay, pull out the poster board or the flip chart or the whiteboard, because I think there's power in the kids participating. And that's one reason why we use that, is because our kids take turns writing and being the scribe. And they like that.
Oh,
they
sure.
like to be like, oh, I'm in charge of writing, and they take turns.
Big
and
magic marker is a big motivator.
Yeah, you're getting, yes, exactly. Because there are always drawings, strange drawings that go along with it too. And that's totally fine because everyone's there and they're participating. So whatever works. But yeah, pulling out the markers, letting them take part is a good way to get buy-in. I'm never against pulling out a treat, getting some ice cream out, and just making it a fun thing. And then always letting your kids know why. Like, we're doing this so that we can all get on the same page about how we want to use screens. And this is, again, I love Stephen Covey's idea of begin with the end in mind.
Yes.
So we really want to think, how do we want to use technology and screens now so that we can have the relationships that we want later? And if we don't sit down and have this conversation, we're going to drift apart. Technology is going to kind of take over. And you can even just tell your kids, hey, everybody's spent on screens way too much, including me. And I think that is another great way to get buy-in, is letting your kids know that this is about the whole family, parents included. And it's fine to admit your mistakes. I've noticed that I've been working after dinner and not really paying attention or having conversations with everyone or helping everybody get to bed. I want to do better at that. How can you guys help me? Help me do better, because I want to make sure that I am present and that I'm here for your childhood and to have conversations with you. And so that's also a good way to get buy-in, because the kids can
asking for help.
Asking for help and not being like, this is all about you, the kids. And if you do that, that's a sure way to get everybody to completely shut down.
Sure.
Because it's not like, let's come up with a solution together.
Yes. So I love, you have this way of really honoring the kids in their process and bringing them into that family dynamic of decision making and kind of setting the blueprint for your family's tech plan. And one of the tools that I think does this really well is the self-evaluation for cell phone usership. And can you take a minute and explain this and maybe even a few of the steps of the self-evaluation?
Yeah, definitely. So this was born out of our need, as you just heard, to figure out, when do we hand over a cell phone? Do we ever? What should this look like? And so we sat down with the kids and had our big Post-it note. And I said, okay, guys, I have 2 questions for you. One is, what does it mean to be responsible? And the kids were like, oh yeah, we got this. Okay, you get up for school on your own. You do your homework without being asked. You do your chores. All these things that you're responsible with your belongings. And then I said, okay, second question, what does it mean to be emotionally mature? Now that can be kind of big one. Yeah, for young kids. But if you kind of start talking about it, if you've got older kids, it's like, oh, okay, that's being kind to your siblings. That means that you don't lose your cool when you don't get your way. And just kind of unpacking that a little bit. But I really can't think of a better way to describe emotional maturity. I mean, that's what it is, but it kind of is kindness. And it's, it's more than being responsible. It's kind of a little bit more about your character and your values. And so we talked about all those things. And I said, man, this is an awesome list, you guys. These are all the things that a person needs to be and to be doing before they are able to have a cell phone. Because I said, man, this thing is so powerful. And we've learned that we made a mistake as parents. So we're backtracking and we want to do this better. So there isn't really a certain age when it's right. It's, and then again, like when you look at all these things, you have to be pretty old and responsible. Like to me, these are like older teen things that some older teens can do and some still can't. So we took all those answers and flipped them and turned them into a self-evaluation. Again, that's the teacher in me. But in the classroom and in the home, there's so much power when you give the student or the child the opportunity to self-reflect and evaluate instead of you telling them, this is what you're not doing right. This is what you need to do better. And obviously, like some kids are not going to be honest when they self-evaluate.
I was going to say, what do you do if you get the list handed back to you and you've got, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Checked
some
off.
Parents do. Some parents will tell me, and I'm like, hey, then that's your starting point for a conversation. And that's where you do kind of have to start listing the things. Okay. So your chore, like our kids all do the same job for a whole month. So it's like, okay, your job for this month is to take out the garbages. But sadly, the garbages have been overflowing the past 2 days, and I've had to remind you. And so again, like those are very concrete things. If you kind of have those routines set up in your home or where, your teacher emailed me and you have like 5 missing assignments, there's proof. So again, you just like the proof's there, right?
Right.
So
kind of removing,
conversation,
kind of making everything very objective, making everything just kind of fact oriented rather than open for parent interpretation.
Yes. Like, you're not responsible.
Right. I have found when assigning chores in my own home, there seems to be a stage when my children hit jobs that are either done or they're not. Like the job of dusting or is something that I have to take over because as it turns out, that is a very variable job.
It is.
But
you are 100% right.
Trash removal, it's done or it's not. There are some things that get very black and white.
That's such a good point. But yeah, I think then you have the opportunity to have a conversation. But I've had like a mom who had a 16-year-old, they printed out the evaluation. She said, my 16-year-old son said, I'm not doing half of these things, mom. And he put the self-evaluation up on his bedroom wall to help him think, okay, these are the things that I want to do and I need to do before I get a cell phone. I was like, wow, that right there is demonstrating emotional maturity.
For sure.
And again, if you have a child who totally answering no, yes, I'm doing all of these things, and they're not, that's like, okay, red flag. They are not emotionally mature and ready for a cell phone because they can't be honest here. They're not going to be honest on a device that's going to capture their attention.
Right. Whether it's called emotional maturity or self-awareness.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, so you're also kind of teaching that tool of self-awareness and of perception.
Yes.
So yeah, really important. Oh, so, okay. So now we've created love in our home. Well, we've, practiced the 3 R's. We've got healthy boundaries and each member has fingers on the blueprint of our plan. Our teen has successfully followed through with their self-evaluation and is old enough to start using a cell phone. And so we're ready to take the leap. And now what?
Yes. So I had the same question, and I am a person of faith. So I spent a lot of time praying about this. And I just had this scripture that came to my mind. It was about line upon line, precept upon precept. And I always tell parents, if you're not religious or that's not your thing, this concept can be applicable no matter what your beliefs are. It's like the idea of just knowing that we're ready for things at different stages, just like with, and I think we use this analogy a lot in the digital wellness space, but we're not going to hand over the car keys of the family car to our 5-year-old. Right. And so again, thinking about at what stage am I ready for what? So I thought, okay, line upon line, precept upon precept, what does that look like when it comes to digital access? And it just had this image in my mind. And it was like, okay, it's like the brick phone, which again, 5 years ago, that was all that we really had. And then, or a watch. And then we're moving up to a smartphone that has limited access. So of course, now the Gab phone exists, and there are other smartphones on the market now that have limited access. And so that's awesome. However, I have a lot of people that are in our Better Screen Time community that live in other countries where those kind of phones aren't available. So I just say, find the most simple device that you can, whether that's a brick phone, flip phone, a watch, and start there. And then we move up to a smartphone that has limited access. So you're really just calling, texting, maybe a camera, very limited features. And then that third phase is to add some apps that might be useful. And I think that this is one thing that does start to get challenging, because as our kids enter high school, quite often, even at school, they're asking them, okay, download this app because we need it for this activity or whatever. And so that's where, the Gab phone can kind of take you to a certain point, but then, there's other phones on the market now, like TrueMe and Pinwheel, that allow you to allow certain apps. And so that can be a good thing. Or if you're using an Android or an Apple device, you can use digital wellness or screen time to limit the apps that are available. And so again, just limiting those apps, really sitting down with your teen. Okay, what is this app? Why do you need it?
Taking that inventory.
Yeah, using it together. And then the very, very last step is adding social media. And that's phase 4 of our 4-phase process. And that's simply because you and I both know that social media is a whole nother animal, it's a beast. And it is very challenging to really monitor that well, because you have DMs, you have things that disappear.
It's designed to not be monitored.
Exactly.
It's designed there's no filtering process that will.
Yeah. And as you and I both know, everything's there.
Right.
So at that point, we have another evaluation that's, am I ready for social media? And again, that's something that the parent and the teen both fill out, because I think parents have an equal responsibility to make sure that they've talked to their kids about pornography, about cyberbullying, about sexting. I mean, all these things that we don't always think of when we hand over a device. Those things all really need to be in place before we are allowing social media. And then you can take that slowly too, which we talk about in our course, Untangling Teens in Tech, but just really, putting the social media app on your phone first as a parent. That's what we've done, where the app, my daughter had an account, but it wasn't on her device. It was on mine. And so she could use it on my phone. And there's just baby steps like that we can take to help them gradually work into it.
I think that's a very healthy walk into those waters. You're not jumping right into the deep end. You are taking them slowly and showing them safe techniques. And I think that's beautiful, that 4-phase process. And ultimately, like, as we said, the goal is for them to have their own social media accounts and to move out into the world on their own. So that's really teaching for independence. So we have to take a short break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask Andrea Davis for her healthy screen habit.
At what age should I give my child a smartphone? How much screen time should I allow each day? What are the best filters to use on my family's devices? Sound familiar? These questions and more are answered at the Healthy Screen Habits website. We've curated the best articles, books, videos, and many other resources to help you figure out how you want to use technology in your life. Click on the awareness section to learn about the issues and dangers surrounding screen use. Then click on the Tools page to download printables you can use with your family today, including the Healthy Screen Habits Family Technology Plan. Visit our website at www.healthyscreenhabits.org for the resources and tools you need to get started.
Better Screen Time helps families establish screen time as a positive experience. They believe that using everyday interactions to establish routines and expectations help families to enjoy technology intentionally and learn to avoid the pitfalls that are so common in our society. Andrea Davis works tirelessly in this arena and has so many family-friendly great tips and tricks to make this happen. And now we get to learn one.
All right.
Andrea, on every episode of the Healthy Screen Habits podcast, I ask each guest for a healthy screen habit. This is a tip or takeaway that our listeners can put into practice in their own home. Could you share a better screen time, healthy screen habit?
Yes. I recommend that families start a dinner time conversation and decide on some screen-free spaces and times in your home. If you haven't done this already, this is a really easy place to start, to just get started. I think that that is one of the habits that, if put in place, can protect your kids' minds, protect their spirituality, protect their time, safeguard so many things. And so I always recommend that. And then find your magic number. So as you're sitting together at dinner, talk about how you want to use screens and what your magic number is for the amount of time that you want to spend away from your screens. So we in our family, we aim for 2-1-1. And so that is 2 hours a day away from screens, 1 day a week, and 1 week out of the year to use tech differently and to go mostly screen free. And again, I think like having that a morning routine where your device isn't a huge part of that. As a mom, might need to check your phone for texts and send a text because we're arranging and planning for the day, but not jumping on social media or email and all those things, but instead starting your day with intention. Hopefully you can give yourself some time then. And again, some time in the evening or during the day, but trying to have at least a couple of hours where you're just away from your phone, and 1 day a week. So for our family, that's Sunday, and we don't go completely screen free because we use our screens sometimes for like spiritual lessons and things like that. But I think families can pick any day that works best for them. I know you're familiar with Tiffany Schlein, where their family is Jewish, so they celebrate, or they do a tech Shabbat from Friday at sundown to Saturday at sundown. And I love that. And they go completely screen free. So just picking 1 day a week where you are using tech differently. And then I say 1 week out of the year, but I honestly aim for more than that. I always take a big social media sabbatical in the summer. It's usually at least 3 weeks, sometimes longer. One summer I went 6 weeks, just completely deleted the apps off my phone and stepped away. And it was wonderful. And also just thinking of how, as Cal Newport talks about optional technologies, how can you, during that week, how can you step away from optional tech and really take time to connect with your family?
Interesting. I love the whimsy of this concept of a magic number. I think it would be an easy sell to a lot of kids and it might even be fun to say, tell them that it has to be 3 digits, but right off the bat, just have everybody give you a magic number and then tell them what it's going to be applied to.
That would be fun.
It would be fun just to play with it,
Totally.
So,
yes, I love that.
Who doesn't want more magic in their life?
That's right. That's right.
That might be a parenting win because they might go for the biggest numbers possible.
That's true. Yeah, you never know.
Oh, okay. Well, if our listeners would like to learn more about better screen time, the power couple, the Davises behind it, and the teen self-evaluation or 4-phase process to cell phone usage, I will link all of that in the show notes of this episode, which is season 3, episode 6 on the Healthy Screen Habits website. Andrea, I can't thank you enough for chatting with me today.
Oh, I loved being here with you, Hillary. I'm so glad we made it happen.
For more information, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Healthy Screen Habits. Make sure to visit our website, healthyscreenhabits.org, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. It's free, it's fun, and you get a healthy new screen habit each week. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you giving us a quick rating. It really does help other people find us and spread the word of healthy screen habits. Or if you'd simply like to tell a friend, we'd love that too. I so appreciate you spending your time with me this week, and I look forward to learning more healthy habits together.